Boom. Guess who stepped back in this motherfucking room? Yes, indeed, it's Gunner from Gunner's Collective, Big Senior Rojo from A Convict's Perspective. Together we form the Collective Podcast.
Yes,
And yes, indubitably, we are back. Today, something totally different for the mind, one time for your mind. We are talking about the Steven Stayner story, right? And for those of you that don't know, I'm going to give it to Big Rojo right now. He's going to give you the basic outline of the story, and then I'm going to give you some personal experiences and a whole lot of in-depth shit into the story because I know it like no other, being that it's based out of Merced, California. So without further ado, Rojo, let's talk about it.
all right, man. Man, I just kept it real simple on this, you guys. I went to Wikipedia just for the facts, so we didn't have to memorize dates and names, and because that's not what's really important, man. What's really important is this story is a trip, and we're gonna break that down for you. But like Gunnar said, man, this is about Stephen Gregory Stayner. He was born April 18th of 1965, and he passed away on September 16th of 1989. He was kidnapped, man, and he was a young man when he disappeared. He was only 7 years old. He disappeared out of Merced, California, and he was able to get away, man. But before we get into all that, he ended up dying in 1989 from a motorcycle crash, ultimately. But anyway, man, as far as it goes, as far as the whole kidnapping and things, man, it happened on the afternoon of December 4th in 1972. And he was approached by a man on his way home. And the guy was named Irvin Edward Murphy. And he had become, this dude Murphy had become, friends kind of with a convicted predator that had preyed on younger people, unfortunately, man. He went by the name of Kenneth Parnell. And they had both worked in some kind of a resort type of place in Yosemite National Park, actually, man. And the dude Murphy, he was described by those who knew him as like trusting and naive and simple-minded, and he kind of fell victim to this dude Parnell, to his influence. Parnell had like enlisted him to be I don't know, like an assistant or something crazy, man. He started by passing himself off to Murphy as a minister, of a man of God. And then, man, it got into helping him abduct a young boy so he could raise him religiously and all kinds of weird stuff. But anyway, man, the Murphy was acting on instructions to Parnell, and passing out gospel tracts to boys walking home from school that day. And after he spotted Stayner claiming to be a church representative and seeking donations, right? Stayner later claimed that Murphy asked him if his mother would be willing to donate any items to the church. When the boy replied that she would, Murphy asked Stayner where he lived and if he would be willing to take Murphy to his home. The young kid agreed, and a white Buick that was driven by Parnell pulled up, and Stayner willingly climbed into the car with Murphy. Parnell then drove a confused Stayner to his nearby cabin in a place called Kathy's Valley. Unbeknownst to Stayner, Parnell's cabin was located only several hundred feet from his maternal grandfather's house. So he was right there by Grandpa's the whole time. Parnell, I don't know if I can say this word on YouTube, but it starts with an M. Something people do to younger kids the first night at the cabin. And then it was repeated for 13 days, man. On December 17th of 1972, Stayner had told Parnell many times during the first week that he wanted to go home. Parnell told Stayner that he had been granted legal custody of the boy because his parents couldn't afford so many children, and that he didn't want him no anymore, kind of like brainwashing him, getting into the, the whole Stockholm type thing, man. He tried to change his name to Dennis Gregory, put his last name on it. He passed himself off in public as Stayner's father, actually, and they moved around California, living in locations, Santa Rosa, Comtoch, he started trying to act like this kid was his own kid, man. He allowed him to start drinking at a young age and to come and go as he pleased. Like, he had Stayner convinced that it was his own family now, And this happened for a period of 18 months, man. A woman named Barbara Matthias lived with Parnell and Stayner also. And according to Stayner, Matthias and Powell had done weird stuff to him on at least 9 separate different occasions, man. You know what I mean? As he got into puberty, man, Purnell started looking for other younger kids. He actually used Stayner to attempt to help him lure kids. Um, it's just a whole horrible, really horrible situation. One night on March 1st, 1980, while Parnell was away at his night security job, Stayner left with some guy named White and hitchhiked into Ukiah. Unable to locate White's home address, he decided to have White walk with him to the police station to ask for help. Without him, police officers spotted and detained both of them. Stayner immediately identified White and then revealed his own true identity and story. Then on March 2nd, Parnell had been arrested on suspicion of abducting both of them. When the police checked into his background, they found a previous, I can't say this word either, it starts with an S. Starts with an S, man. Odomy. You know what I mean? That's the best way I could tell you. He had a conviction for that in 1951. Both children were reunited with their families that same day. In 1981, Parnell was tried and convicted of kidnapping White and Stayner in 2 separate trials. He was sentenced to only 7 years, man, and was paroled after serving 5. Parnell was not charged with the numerous weird type of assaults on Stayner and the other boys because most of them occurred outside of the jurisdiction of the Merced County prosecutor, or were by then outside the statute of limitations. The Mendocino County prosecutors, acting almost entirely alone, decided not to prosecute him as well, bro. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, man, he got away, you know, and he survived that ordeal, man. It's just a horrible story, man. I know, Gunner, you know a lot more about it because, you know, growing up in Merced, man, I just know what I've heard on websites, you know.
Yeah, so it's a story. If you're from the Merced area, man, it's a story that was told to you as a kid several times. Okay, this was a story that our parents used to scare us when we'd be walking alone out there with our friends. You guys better get in, or you guys are going to end up like Steven Stayner. Funny thing is, I grew up in the neighborhood 3 to 4 houses down away from Steven Stayner's family. I remember as a kid, there was posters all over Merced where they were looking for this kid. They never gave up, right? And he never gave up. Just like Rojo said, that's the true story, man. He got manipulated, he got taken, and this guy actually had him believing that he was his father. But Steven always knew, you know, something was up, something was wrong. He felt that draw to his family. He felt like his family was out there looking for him. Of course, over the years, you know, you start to forget. As a young kid, you grow up, man, your mind's going this way and that way, and he starts to forget. But one thing he knew that wasn't right was what this guy was doing to younger children, other younger children. And so he knew something about that wasn't right. See, that's something that's instilled into people where it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, you know right from right, wrong from wrong, right? So funny thing is after going through this whole ordeal that he went through, he helped that young kid out, man. He helped that young kid out, and they actually have a Lifetime movie. And the movie is called I Know My Name is Steven. And that was real big because when he went into that police station, he didn't even know his real true last name. He had forgot. And what he told his family, what he told these cops when they said, well, who are you? You know, this is a crazy story. Who are you? He said, I know my name is Steven. He only knew his name. Of course, they put posters up. They got in contact with his family and he was reunited. Okay, but the story takes a cold twist. So he's reunited with his family. He has a brother named Carrie and a sister, and his family. You know, of course, you know, he's been through such a big ordeal, and it's real big and famous in the city of Merced. You know, everybody wants the interview. He did an interview, I think it was on 60 Minutes or something like that. Just a real big deal, man. This man just wanted to live his life and forget about everything he went through. Of course, Parnell, the weirdo, he gets off away with because of the statute of limitations, because man, these guys get all the love, and you know, back then it was like really, you know, there's always been a stigma where, oh, you could touch our children but don't touch our money. You know what I mean? It was more of, you know, they're focused on money more than they are the youth. So quiet as it's kept, he got a license, slap on the wrist, he got away with it, and I'm sure that wasn't his last victim. Now, Steven Stayner grows up and is not very close to his brother, not very close to his sister. His family kind of dotes on him because of everything that he went through. So his family's showing him some type of love. And he, you know, he works, he gets him a job. I remember seeing him as a young kid. He was older, but I remember seeing him in Merced and people pointing him out. He was like a celebrity that nobody wanted to approach. Hey, look, there's Steven Stayner. Hey, that's Steven Stayner. And no one wanted to run up on him and say anything because we knew what he went through, you know? It was kind of an unspoken thing that everybody talked about in Merced. So now he ends up getting his motorcycle. He gets a motorcycle, and then we have a road in Merced. It's an old highway. You know, before they got Highway 99 going through Merced, it was old Santa Fe. And he ends up wrecking on old Santa Fe and dying. And it's just crazy. I remember thinking as a kid, he went through all that hardship and all that struggle, man, just to grow up and not even be able to live a fruitful life. He died, you know? But it happens. They say sometimes whoever takes the good ones away, okay, or the ones that had to suffer. So years pass, right? And, you know, everyone hears a story. They watch the movie. Again, I'm even telling my own children the same stories and to watch out. You don't want to get abducted like Steven Stayner, right? It's a tradition thing now in Merced. And then we start having these killings popping up in Yosemite, which anyone that knows Merced is the city called the gateway to Yosemite. It's a straight shot from Merced. Take the back way. In about an hour and a half, you'll be in Yosemite. Everything changes. The Sequoia Forest. You got campfires. You got fucking Smokey the Bear. You got whatever you got, right? Bigfoot, all kinds of bullshit. But what you had was some type of serial killer. People were becoming beheaded out there. Okay? And no one knew who did it. And, you know, Merced, located in the Central Valley, is not a very big city. You know, we hold it down for our own. But again, at the end of the day, man, it's not a big city. Not a lot goes on. So when you have a serial killer, it's pretty much guaranteed you're going to know the motherfucker. Unless he's from out of town, you're going to know someone that knows him or slept with someone's wife that knows. Somewhere along the line, you're going to know this individual. And we came to find out that we all knew who he was. We didn't know him personally, but we knew him. And I've seen him on several occasions. And this is where the story takes a twist. He gets arrested. They do a press conference and they announce the serial killer that's been beheading all these women and these people is Cary Stayner, Steven Stayner's brother. Okay. And that was a trip to me because that name, there's only one Stayner family still located in Merced. And that blew my mind. Like, why, after everything his brother went through, then he grows up to be a serial killer. And then, you know, I don't know the psychological aspects to things like this, but what I do know, and I can tell you, is that my thinking and reasoning behind it is, you know, and I can't tell you the fucking thinking of a psychopath. I ain't a psycho or sociopath, but, well, not all the time. But look, my thinking is, when this happened to his brother, you got to understand, when his brother was found, his brother was getting all the attention. Okay, you got to understand, he was used to having all the attention from his family. He was the only son now. His brother was out of the way. It wasn't the dislike for his brother or anything. You know, I'm sure he felt, you know, a kinship. I'm sure he missed his brother. But at the same time, he was getting all the love, you know. And as soon as his brother came in the picture, he got put on the back burner, kind of got put in the background. His brother's getting all this attention from the media. He's getting attention from the local authorities, from people, donations. He's on 60 Minutes. They're making fucking movies about him. He's going to trials. He's doing all these different things. And poor old Cary's in the background. What about me? You don't give a damn about me, right? And so he made sure that everyone knew who he was. Yeah. Okay? He started cutting fucking people's heads off. Yeah. This is what happens, okay, in America and a lot of other countries, when you're neglected and you feel like all eyes ain't on you. Well, guess what? Tragedies can turn people into fucking psychopaths. You know, if you feel you're not getting the proper attention at home, what do? You seek gangs, you know, to get that family behind you, that comfort, that love that you're lacking or that you need. If you're a woman, man, and you've been spousal abused, it seems like the women tend to go towards the same type of individuals. It's like they seek that without seeking it. They like the attention that it brings. You know, it's been told time and time again, the men, man, if they like a certain woman that utilizes them and uses them for stuff, it seems like he always ends up finding himself that same type of woman because it's a lack of and a need, right?
Yeah.
And this is what Carrie needed, was attention, right? All the attention was focused on Steven Stayner. And so he went and got his attention. He got his attention. He let the good times roar, the heads in this case. He started cutting people's heads off. It's a well-documented case. You can look it up, Google it, Wikipedia, whatever the fuck you like to use. Carrie Stayner, man, the Yosemite killer. And it's just a crazy thing. Now, I was going to ask you, Ro, what do you think was going through this man's head? Was it the lack of attention? Is that what you're thinking, or that to make him turn this route?
Oh man, it's hard to say, man. First, before I even think about that, man, that same dude Parnell, bro, in '04 at 72 years old, got convicted of trying to get one of his nurses to get him another youngster, and he was going to pay her $500. You know what I mean? So it's like, dude, I mean, the dude ended up dying in January of '08 at Vacaville. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, man, you give people like that, bro. I don't understand why they don't give enough time. Man, they tried to give me 8 years at 85% one time for stealing something, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this fool walks away with 5 years for kidnapping and then all the other stuff that he didn't get charged with, man. It's like, wow. They gotta be harder on these type of people, bro. I mean, that's all there is to it. But man, the psychological aspect of having your brother be gone, and I don't know, maybe he felt a need to avenge his brother or something. You know, hey, something bad happened to my brother, I'm gonna avenge him. Maybe you're right. It could be like, oh, my brother's all in the spotlight, he's all important because this happened to him, and I'm just a nobody. But I'll tell you what, man, it seems like they come from some bad DNA, bro. I mean, you know,
Bad luck, or some bad luck.
Yeah, man, just unfortunate, bro. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
there's something wrong with the kid. You know, there's been times where I feel like I need to get back at somebody, and this, I don't go chop people's heads off. You know what I mean?
Nah.
It's like, but yeah, I mean, it could be, that's the only two things I come up with. Something bad happened to his brother and he was going to repay society as a whole for that happening to his brother, or he wanted the attention that his brother got and he was going to get it any way necessary.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's for a positive outcome or a situation like this. Those are the only two situations. Okay, there is a third option. He's just sick in the head.
That's an option I lean to too.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, it could be just a coincidence, a freak coincidence. He's just a fucking sicko. He's just different, and he just happens to have a brother that got kidnapped.
Yeah,
and that's it. You know, there's no one knows, man. When a kid is born into this world, you don't know what's going on in his mind. You know, I'm saying killers are born every day. We don't know what's going through their head. We don't know what was going through Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, who are some of those fucking other weirdos? There's a lot of them. We don't know what's going through their minds. You know, I have another story I'm going to tell you. Trip out on this, since we're talking about the city of Merced. When I was young, man, I grew up in an area called Beechwood, which is located right on the outskirts of Merced. It's still considered Merced, but it's its own entity. It's its own neighborhood. Pretty tight-knit neighborhood. It was real diverse. We had a little bit of everyone, more Chicanos, of course, because Merced is 85% Chicanos, but for the most part, there was a little bit of everyone. And all the neighborhood kids, we all hung around together. And this is back, man, 7, 8 years old. I'm running wild with the kids up and down the street. My mother was pretty strict. My father, my stepfather at the time, was pretty strict. So I was one of those kids, not strict where I was getting the shit beat out of me, but strict enough where I had to be home and I had to let my people know where I was at all times. So my cousin, I would hang around with one of my cousins, Jonathan, who lived right down the street from me. And it was probably me, Jonathan, a friend. Shout out to David Sanchez, man. I haven't seen him in 20 years. It was a little kid, David Sanchez, a few other little kids, you know, neighborhood kids. Before the gang banging, we would see the gangsters on the corner, but that wasn't our thing yet. We were into collecting baseball cards and fucking watching Captain Caveman still, right? It wasn't until 2 years later, they put a gun in my hand, a red Fonio in my pocket, and I killed someone, right? But so about seven years old, man, I'm running around, and where my cousin Jonathan lived, there was this old man named George. Guy lived right next to, pretty cool old man, older guy, man, didn't bother no one, very, very old. He had to be in his 80s, early 80s. He had an old blind dog, blind in one eye, was fucking about as old as he was, that they'd walk up and down to the store, and George didn't bother no one. Well, a couple of my friends used to go hang out at George's house. George had this big garden in his backyard. He grew potatoes, he grew corn, tomatoes, things of that nature. So being a whole bunch of little kids, man, a whole bunch of little hungry kids, right? It wasn't like our parents didn't feed us enough at home, but we were trying to make $1 out of 50 cents. We were always trying to eat whatever we could. This old man would let all the kids hang out at his house and basically let them do whatever they wanted. He was too old to get, once he was in his chair, he couldn't move. And it wasn't like we were taking advantage. We were, but we weren't. We'd go to his house. He'd let us dig up food from his garden. We'd be in there cooking baked potatoes and whatever we could make, right? And he was cool. Cool old man, never tried any weird. He wasn't a weirdo like that. Never tried any weird stuff. He was pretty much old, put on his TV. He'd kick back and at all these kids. He just wanted companions, people to hang out with him. And of course, we were going to utilize this old man and take advantage, run wild in his house and kick his dog and do whatever the fuck we felt like doing at that time. I'm a dog lover, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing against dogs, but that's just what it was. You know, I was a little bad kid.
Kids are kids, bro. Yeah.
Kids are kids, right? So, one day, and we've been doing this maybe several months. He was, he was a staple in the community. Everyone knew him. Old George, you'd see him walk up and down. So it's one day, man, I see a lot of cops at his house. And, first thing goes through my mind is, old George's gone. He kicked the bucket, right? I wonder if I could break in his house and see if there's anything in there I could steal, right? I was just bad.
Hey, how old do you think old George was?
Oh, he was in his mid to late 80s, right? Very old man, could barely talk, probably couldn't tell us to get the fuck out of his house if he wanted to. He was that old. He didn't even know we were there half the time. But I see a lot of cops, so my friend David pulls up on his bike. I'm like, bro, what happened? Did George die? That's what you think. There were several cop cars, and he lived further down the street from me, but it's one street. It's called Meadowbrook, and I could see a whole bunch of cop cars and everything, and I know there wasn't nothing bad like that going on. It was probably he died. And my friend said, nah, man, you got to hear what happened. He said, what? And so I got on my bike. My mom said, well, what's going on? I said, I'm going to go find out. Drove my bike down there with my friend. And what we found out will forever be stuck with me, right? They dug up 9 dead bodies in this guy's, under that garden where we used to eat from. This old man was a serial killer from back in the 60s.
Wow.
Yes, indeed. Them bodies were there from the 60s, 70s. I never got the full details. Of course, the cops ain't telling us shit. We're little kids.
Yeah.
This is just stories I got from, grown-ups that were there. But they dug up 9 bodies and arrested that old man. I don't know what happened to him, but, my parents were just like, you got lucky. But like I said, he was too old to even make a move, man. And I don't know if that's what he was into, but the bodies, I guess, were there since the 60s and 70s. He was killing people and burying them in that fucking garden back 50 years prior to us making a baked potato. All I could say is I knew them fucking potatoes tasted funny, right? But It is what it is. It's crazy. Like I said, you never know what's going through one's mind and who people are. People think that, I've done plenty of time with serial killers. I know you have. You've been at San Quentin, man. They got everyone's there,
Yeah.
I did time with a guy called the Raiderette Killer. Okay. For those of you that don't know, I guess he kidnapped some Raiderettes. I don't think he sexually assaulted them because at this time it was mainline. He was just a fucking pretty vicious old man. Was with the business. And this guy, we were sitting in the chow hall. And the way it was in the chow hall was like, there's some chow halls where you can sit with your own people. You have your own designated tables, Northerners over here, Southerners over here, whatever the case may be, if you're gang related. It's prison. Everyone has to identify with their people. That's just how it is. But this particular prison, it's you just sit wherever the cop said you. You guys go here, you go there, you go here. They would try to keep it diversified for certain reasons. And so everyone, this is a main line, everyone that you're sitting with, although maybe an African-American, maybe a white, black, whatever, a Mexican, whatever the case may be, everyone's pretty solid. There's no trash, what they would call it, right? And we're all sitting down. Now, there's unspoken rules. When a man's eating his food, you don't ask him if he's going to eat that. You don't do that. If that man pushes that tray to the middle and there's still something on it, well, that's free for all right there. Now you can have that. Of course, most races ain't going to eat after each other. You know, they're not even going to question it. You know, of course, being a northerner, ex-northerner with the African Americans, it was kind of a loose alliance type thing. You know, if I had some food there, they wanted it, they'll grab it, you know. But I wasn't going to grab nothing off anyone's tray. That wasn't my get out. Anyway, so this old man was, I think he was Mexican, mixed white. I don't know. He could pass for either or, depending on the day and his tan, right?
Yeah.
He asked me, he said, "Hey, are you gonna eat that salad?" And I looked at him and I said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And I said, "Bro, don't ask me if I'm gonna eat anything on my tray, right?" And I didn't notice old man. It's the first time I had seen him on this yard. I was new to the yard, barely got off orientation, probably the first meal. He kind of just got taken aback and he was like, "All right," he just shook his head, "All right." And then when I pushed my tray out to the middle, I was like, "Now, if you want to grab it," because I wasn't gonna eat it. And he grabbed it and he ate the fucking lettuce. Later on, my homeboy jams me up on the yard. He says, "Hey, you got into it with that old man?" I said, "Nah, I didn't get into it. I just checked him." He said, "You know who that old man is, right?" I said, "What?" He said, "That's the Raiderette killer. That guy, not only is he the Raiderette killer, that motherfucker got a couple bodies in here already. A couple cellies came up short," right? I said, "Oh shit," right? Now, moral of the story is, of course, man, I would have put some fucking steel on the side of his head like Kerry Stayner. I wasn't gonna play, but at the same time, man, I had a certain respect because of a guy like that, that's already sick in the head, man, to be killing women or do whatever he does. And then to continue this shit, man, that's a whole different level of killer. And so I just kind of seen him on the yard, seen him from a distance. He approached me. I kind of was ready on the sun, you know. And he said, "Man, my bad. You know, you're right. I know the prison etiquette, you know," and it was what it was, man. We let bygones be bygones, and I kept it pushing. But anyway, so yeah, man, hey, these serial killers and all these weird things that happen, it's just a trip. You know, I went through some of these crazy things in my life. I know living all over. You've lived in like you live in Houston now. You lived in the Bay Area, grew up, Detroit. What was some of the crazy shit that you heard of or you seen, Rojo?
Oh man. As far as stories like that, bro, there was one dude running around in this certain part of Houston, man. It's in between a place called Sugarland and Richmond, and there's actually a big old state prison right there. And it's a wealthy area. It's called like Pecan Grove, and there's different levels of wealth the farther you go back into the housing development, right? And I guess this dude started off as a burglar, and he was doing burglaries while people weren't home. Well, one day he broke into a home, and there was a single woman there, you know, or she might have been single, or man might have been at work or just not present or whatnot. And so he took it to another level. But she survived, you know what I mean? He bounced. He did another couple like that in the same little area, as well as an area a couple miles down the road, another similar area, wealthy, you know, secluded, quiet. Then he gave up the burglary and everything totally, and he just went in there and started taking people out, bro. And it went on for a while. I don't remember how many victims there was in total, but it had that little whole community on edge as well too, man. And another weird one with me, as far as weird people like that go, in Detroit, man, where I lived, this was back in the days where, you know, a lot of kids would have like paper routes. You know what I mean? You know how we used to hustle? We used to cut grass, we used to wash cars, you know, the kind of shit we would do. Well, a little bit older than me, there was a lot of paper boys and shit like that. Well, one of them that was in the neighborhood over on the west side, I guess it'd be, was more like a paper man. You know what I mean? It was a grown up, but he'd ride a bike and deliver papers. Well, I guess what he was doing was going to like areas like apartments and getting little kids to take the papers to certain doors. You know what I mean? He'd come into the apartments, he bred out the kids, you know, dollar, whatever, I don't know, to go take papers to different apartments. Well, he got weird, man, and started taking kids to the woods and doing weird stuff to them. You know what I mean? And he didn't get told on for a long time for some reason. But when they ended up busting him, man, he had like 17 victims of kids. He wasn't whacking them, but he was just doing the weird stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, those are the two that really stick out in my head. You know, there's always those stories that are designed, like you said, to kind of keep kids in check. You know, you know, the guy under the bed, if you get out of your bed at night, the boom bees. I told that story a while back.
Yeah.
You know, and there's been a few, man, where I don't, you know, being a younger person being told these stories, I don't know how to verify if they were real. You know what I mean? But man, your parents, man, if they tell you these stories as a lesson, you know what I mean? Hang out, man, don't go places by yourself. Always have a buddy. You know, whoop, especially when you're younger, you're vulnerable. Like me, I'll go anywhere because nobody's gonna make me do anything. You know what I mean? But I'm a grown man. When you're a kid or a woman, you know, it's hard to defend yourself against a grown man. You know, so there's all kinds of stories about, you know, kids being found here and this. I just don't want to mention none of them because I haven't been able to figure out their authenticity. If they're just like, you know, how your parents and grandparents would try to give you scary stories to teach you lessons and teach you right from wrong and how to be socially aware and, you know, what to watch out for weirdos, you know, like the ice cream man van, you know, stuff like that, bro. But man, there's definitely weirdos around, dude, for sure.
Oh,
And
definitely.
you know, the ones that bought the, you know, like right now I'm still agitated that one dude in that Stayner story only got fucking 5 years, bro. And then tried to do the same shit as a 70-something-year-old man, still trying to do that bullshit, bro. It's like,
yeah, they don't stop,
he should have got life to begin with, you know?
Yeah, they don't stop, and that's the perception of man. That's the perception of people is they think, okay, yeah, he did this, he made a mistake, he whatever. And this is why I'm so adamant when it comes to these offenders of that nature, me having no dealings with them or nothing to do with them. And the reason being is cases just like that. They seem to never learn. They seem to continue to do it, continue to do it. It's not a mistake. It's a disease. It's a pattern. It's something they do. They might say in their mind and to the community as a whole, man, I made a mistake. I'll never do that again. Or I didn't do that. I'm not on Megan's Law. Whatever they say, right? At the end of the day, if they did it once, I guarantee they will do it again. If the opportunity arises and they think nobody's looking, I'll buy that for $1. That's how they are. And I don't care. I've seen it time and time again. And it just is what it is, man. And I'd rather be safe than fucking sorry. So I just distance myself from any type of individuals. And if I don't see it, then I don't have to do nothing about it. Because if I see it, well, then guess what? You know, I'm definitely going to take the initiative to do something about it. If the court system won't, then we got to have kangaroo court, I guess. It just be like that sometimes. But I wanted to say that I remember that motherfucker, what was his name? The Night Stalker. Do you remember when that was going on? That I was living in Modesto, California at that point in time. And we've always moved from Merced to Modesto to Merced. You know, my dad being from
That's Modesto. Richard Ramirez, right? That's
Richard Ramirez. Yeah, he's a sick individual.
Yeah.
That was the one man in this world I could say literally had me spooked as a kid. I was protective of my mother, protective of my family. I was looking out the window. He had me paranoid, right? Because this guy was creeping through houses, breaking in at night and killing women, right? And whoever was in there. And yeah, he was a trip. I was happy when they got his ass off the streets. He needed to be the fuck off the streets.
Yeah.
That guy was crazy, right? And there's several others like him, man. There's people, right? You know, it's weird to think right now as we speak, there's people chained to some wall somewhere going through a whole lot of hardship, you know? Yeah. And people don't seem to think about that. You live your everyday life, man. You're going on. We're looking forward to the football games on Sunday. Man, who's going to make the playoffs in the NBA this year? Oh man, look at my new ride. Oh man, I just went and applied for a new job. Oh man, they gave me a raise. Oh man, what about that fucking chick that's chained to a wall right now and some sickos fucking in the room watching you porn? What about that? Right? No one thinks about that until after the fact when it happens. And then they're like, man, that was a trip. That was my neighbor. Yeah, well, pay attention to your surroundings, just like what happened a while back in Ohio, man, when that girl was kidnapped for 10 years by that Puerto Rican guy. And of course, finally she came to her senses and after having his kid, and he had a couple of them kidnapped, he built extra rooms in his house. He had people over there at his house, didn't even know that he had a whole extra life, a whole nother family in there. And, she was broken out of there, helped. And, everybody knows that story. That he gave that man 1,000 years and he hung himself. Okay. But this is the people, like the guy said, man, that the African-American guy that they interviewed, he said, I was eating my McDonald's, right? And see.
Oh, my McDonald's.
Yeah, I was eating my McDonald's watching WWE. I was eating my McDonald's because I'm loving it, right? He wasn't paying attention to his surroundings. People weren't. And, of course, man, you don't want to be nosy. Of course, you don't like nosy neighbors. But motherfucker, be aware. Remember, where were your antennas when this motherfucker was having kids with people behind the stairs? You need to fucking watch out because you never know when everyone only cares when it affects them.
Exactly.
Okay, but I'm gonna tell you right now, society as a whole affects everybody. Guess what? The tax man ain't just gonna tax them, they're gonna tax you too. Everyone's gonna get taxed. So we're all one people. We all gotta move and be aware together because hey, it might be his kid today, but it could be yours tomorrow, So that's just my thinking. I've been around a lot of sick, weird individuals, incarcerated, and we all know the same stories. And so all I can say to the people out there is just stay aware, man, and know that we have to fight back. Comes times, man, where we have to fucking handle it because the court systems obviously ain't taking the initiative to make shit fucking happen.
What's the trip too is like when they were doing executions, man, those people should be at the top of the list, bro. You know what I mean? Yeah, drive-by gang people. If you get your damn death penalty case, I get it. You know what I mean? That's what you were found guilty of. You've exhausted your appeals, whatever. The system's gonna do what it does. But damn it, there should be a damn priority list, man. Like immediately. Like man, like Texas does it. Texas, man, come on. When I go to jail for life, you know where I go? I go right to jail and start doing life. You got these sick people and they just live happily ever after with 7, 8, 9 innocent bodies under them, bro. Come on, man.
There should be no such thing as Megan's Law. There should be no such thing as Megan's Law. These guys all should be killed right from the gate. I don't care if it was an honest mistake. I don't care if he's innocent and found guilty later. Oh man, we made a mistake. Well, guess what? Sometimes mistakes fucking happen. It's called a casualty of war. The war is real. It's the war of normal people versus sickos. Okay? And they shouldn't be allowed, man. Their presence should be allowed back in communities where there's children. They shouldn't be allowed back in communities. And I know that part of Megan's Law is making them aware that these individuals are present. That's not enough. That's not enough. Oh, so he's a weirdo. I don't give a fuck if I know he's a weirdo, man. Get him away from, in my area.
I'll tell you what, man, if you go on that website, bro, and you look, you go through them names, in violation. It's like, there should be no leeway, bro. None. Crime, those type of crimes, bro, that's it, man. I'd rather have 50 drug dealers live in my neighborhood than 50 sickos.
Yeah, and then you're going to have the people that are going to DM and say, oh, yeah, so it's cool for the kids to be all on drugs. No, it's not cool for them to be on drugs, but it's not cool for these weirdos to be touching these kids and killing them and harming them and messing up their mind psychologically so they grow up to be fucking serial killers. No. And look, a lot of this stems from drugs. The meth epidemic, bro, it turns these guys into weirdos, man. They get all skunted out and they turn into fucking J-cats and weirdos and they they get all weird and it's just everything all fits into it. It's all one big pattern, man. But at the end of the day, man, we can't blame it on the drugs. We blame it on the man himself or the woman and say that, man, they do what they do because it's instilled in them. It is what they are. It's always part of them. Oh,
I
I made a
got
mistake.
I got my hands on one in the county one time. There's a
Mm.
dude out of Contra Costa, man. They called him the Deanza Trail, the R word. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And a canine actually said, "Hey, you want to have some extra free time today?" I'm like, "Of course." You know what I mean? I want to get on the phone. You know what I mean? He's
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Yeah, I'm gonna let you out with cell. I don't remember what cell number it is, but it was that dude." And he's like, basically handle that for me.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, I'd be honored. He's like, I'm gonna shoot the camera the other way because there's a camera in there. He could call his people down in control and just because it turns. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they move it. Yeah, they
So he
move it.
turned it the other way. That dude was out on the phone, popped me my door and a white boy's door. The white boy's like my homeboy though. Like me and him are like this, even though he's a
Yep.
wood. You know what I'm saying? Bro, devastation.
You guys did them like the bushwhackers?
Hey, the deputy on duty, he was like this at his desk, and all you hear is
Yeah, well, you know,
breaking him down,
and
bro.
what people fail to realize is a lot of these officers, correction officers, they have children. They don't like these sickos either. Most of them are in there to do their job, okay? Hey, I know, man, there's a stigma, criminals, police, cops and robbers, good guys, bad guys. I don't like you, you don't like me. You got to draw the line in the sand and two opposites. But at the end of the day, they're still men, just like you're a man.
That's a
And
line
they're
that
doing their
us
job.
and them draw together a lot of the time.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys are forced to protect. They're forced to protect these individuals, and they don't want no part of that.
Mm-mm.
So you know, if they happen to pop a door or they happen to let you know what he's in for, man, and it happens quite frequently.
Yeah.
Then it just happens, I guess. It'd be like that sometimes, you know.
I get that information all the time, but
Hey, but
that was the first time they ever actually coordinated it and asked me to take. That was the only time that they actually coordinated and let me handle it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that dude, he would only get to come up by himself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And man, he just walk around there and shit, dude. Just man, it used to piss me off, bro. You know what I'm saying? He just be walking around talking on the phone. Like, bitch, you shouldn't be allowed to talk on the phone. You know what I mean?
I would have grabbed the phone cord and choked.
And I used to be
his
thinking,
fucking
I'm like, bro, I would think about blocking my door. You know what I'm saying? You know, blocking the lock so I could get out and shit. But them doors are a little harder. You have to have help from somebody outside the door. You know what I mean? But the right deputy worked that day, bro. And
you know, hey,
I gave him some hellacious shots, bro. Shots.
you'll forever remember that one.
How I'm telling this story right now, he's somewhere in fucking one of them weirdo places. Like, man, those were some shots.
Yeah, right.
He's telling it. He's telling his weirdo celly while they're sitting there playing wee-wees and butt cracks about the time he got his ass whooped.
They're sitting there playing fucking Dungeons and Dragons, and he's sitting there and he's saying, "That guy, he ain't lying. I can verify that." You know what I mean?
Hey, I was coming all the way from the ceiling, like.
Yeah.
But yeah,
anyways, man,
them people get no love, bro, and it's a shame because the system for some reason seems to think they're rehabilitatable, but you know, let a motherfucker get caught with a little bit of work, ain't bothering nobody, just out there trying to make a couple dollars, and they want to give them 30 years, you know.
Hey, you know, well, you know, it's like I said, man, the rehabilitation is real until it happens to their children. Then things change, you know. Yeah. In life, man, everything's all good until one of these politicians' kids gets kidnapped or something happens. And I don't wish that upon no one, but that's when it seems all seems to change, you know. Anyways, people, like I said, man, we're here. We're open for topics. Hit the DM if you have anything that you want us to talk about, touch on, and elaborate on. We'll definitely look into it. We'll definitely get to it. Again, man, let's keep this podcast booming and going. We got a lot to talk about. Be aware that, man, we're going to touch every topic under the sun. We're going over here. We're going over there. We're talking Bigfoot. We're talking fucking UFOs. We're talking NASCAR. We don't give a fuck. We're here for the people, by the people. It's what we're going to do. So at the end of the day, man, tap in. Like I said, if this is not your flavor, your cup of tea, please still watch it. And support, you know, support the fan band, basically support the gente, man. as we will show our support right back. We will have a lot of different things going on. We're going to have, once we are able to open up the lines, we're going to have call-in phone lines, people coming in, special guests, a lot of things that we're not able to do on our perspective channels that we want to do for the people, because it's different individuals that we want to bring on that have a lot of insight into what's going on with the people around us. So with that being said, Rojo, you got anything to say?
No, that's it, man. We appreciate your guys' support, man. We got our subscribers, man. If you could help us out, like Gunnar says, even if this particular episode isn't your flavor, man, please watch it, man. Let us get up there so we can open this up and make it way better for you guys. And if it's not your flavor and you watch it for us, drop something that is your flavor, and we will definitely entertain presenting it for you. No doubt about it. Because like Gunnar always said, for the people,
by the people.
There it is there. It's your boy Rojo, man. You guys have a good rest of your night, and we'll holler at you mañana.
The Collective Podcast. That's what we do. Talk